What is up, guys? This is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I bring all of you guys my deck profile of my Dark World deck for this April 2015 format. So, I decided to reinvent Dark Worlds, I guess you could say, since the last time you guys saw this way back in maybe February. I made quite a few changes to this deck, and I really did try and cater it more towards this metagame now for this April format. And prospectively, this deck could be one of the better anti-meta strategies of this format, as I was talking with a couple of my friends, and we brought up the topic of Dark World, and the reason why I feel that Dark World could be not really relevant, but potentially a decent deck to run this format, is because it can mainboard quite a few of the sideboard cards that are fairly popular within this format. And just because of that fact, you can gain quite a bit of an advantage over majority of the decks that are popular nowadays. So, I wanted to bring this deck to all of you guys for this new format, so you guys can see all of the, I should say, the many changes that I made to this deck. So, enough of my rambling, let's get right into the new profile. Alright, so starting us off, we have the obligatory triple Grapha. We have to have 3 Grapha because he is our big boss monster of the deck. He is the huge beater of the deck. He is our level 8 deck, part of the deck for our rank 8s. He is our very simple gen out also for whenever we can discard him. And really, Grapha just puts in a ton of work this format, and we have to essentially run him at 3. Following that, we have the 3 Snow on Light of Dark World. Obviously, Snow is here to search out our discarding outlets and or our gates of Dark World. Also, Snow is here to help us search out our Graphas whenever we want to see them. So again, we have to have 3 Snow just because she searches almost our entire deck. Next up, we have the 2 Brow. We have Brow just here for some extra digging through our deck and for just some extra draw power. In my opinion, I don't really like 3 because 3 can clog is if you do draw into Brow, maybe without a discarding outlet, you end up bricking really, really bad. So in order to cut down those dead hands, I did cut Brow to 2. Much in the same light as Brow, I have 2 copies of Beige. Again, just because we don't want to dead draw into him that much, because he is a fairly slow card by himself. So we do have the 2 Beige, because again, we can't search it out with Snow. So yeah, 2 Beige. Next up, we have quite a few supporting monsters, actually, to follow up with that, I guess you could say, small Dark World monster lineup. We go into the 2 Trance Archfiend. Trance is here because Trance is a discarding outlet on legs. So we have to have the Trance to help us get through our slow hands, or at least get our Dark Worlds and getting their effects now. As with Trance and a Beige, you can immediately get a rank 4. So just those little combos with Trance and many of the Dark Worlds in the deck just really helps you get your plays off. It can really help you start disrupting your opponent. So we do have the 2 Trance Archfiend. Following the Trance Archfiend, we have the 1 Tour Guide of the Underworld. Tour Guide is here just to search out our Brows and get them onto our field for free Grapha summonings, as well as to help us fuel our hand by doing that same Grapha summoning and getting that Brow into our hand. Also, of course, Tour Guide is still an instant rank 3, so if we don't necessarily have to go into our Brow, we have other targets within the deck to go alongside Tour Guide just to get us into those rank 3s. So we do have the 1 Tour Guide now. Following the Tour Guide, we go into one of the cooler cards of this deck. We have the 1 Curry Bandit. Now, let me explain the reasoning behind why I have Curry Bandit in this deck. Firstly, we have Curry Bandit in here because there are quite a few spells and traps within this Dark World deck that you really, really want to see as early as you possibly can. One of the traps that I'll get to in a bit later is very important for you to help swing games into your favor. And thus, we want to see that trap card or any of our powerful spells or traps as soon as we can. So we have to have the Curry Bandit in here, in my opinion, just so we can start digging for those spells and traps, as we want to get to our Jin outs or our big power plays as soon as we can. So we have the Curry Bandit to help dig for that, as well as it can help us mill our deck and help get things like our Graphas into grave so that we can easily summon them back. So we have the 1 Curry Bandit in here. Following that, we have the Archfiend Eris, because Eris is here to help us search out our Trance Archfiend, which is subsequently a discarding outlet. So essentially, we can turn Eris into a search for a discard outlet, which is always pretty nice. On top of that, she's also a Tour Guide target, so if we also ever have to use her for that, we can. Next up, we have 2 more monsters in the main deck, starting off with the 1 Thunder King Bryo. The reason why we do mainboard Thunder King is because Thunder King prohibits searching, but outside of snow searching, we don't search all that much in Dark World, as we do draw quite a bit. So that gets around Ryo's restriction. So we can mainboard Ryo, so we can get around our opponent's searches, like our Necros players and maybe our Ritual Beast players and whatever. You know, all the decks that really search quite a bit, we can help slow them down quite a bit to get onto our level of play with the Thunder King. So we do have the one Thunder King just so we can combat this format. Finally, for our last monster, we have the one Dark Arm Dragon, because, well, Dark Arm is supposed to be mandatory in almost every dark deck. So we do have the one Dark Arm because we can control our grave fairly easily within this deck with stuff like Gates of the Dark World and whatnot. So we have the one Dark Arm just for another omnipresent boss monster. So that is it for these monsters. Moving on to the spells, we start off with the 3 Gates of the Dark World. This is obviously here because it gets us into our Dark World engine. It gets us into our drawing power as soon as we can. And we gotta run 3 because we want to see it as early as we possibly can. Following that, we have the 3 Dark World dealings because, again, this is Dark World. We want to see our dealings as much as we can because it is our draw power and it helps us get our discarding effects. So we have to have the 3 Dark World dealings. Following all of that, we have the 2 Drag Down. We have Drag Down again as another discarding outlet, but we also have 2 Drag Down just so we can gain the knowledge of our opponent's hand. And we can start discarding our opponent's hand and making them lose essential cards that they might need to make plays. And the reason why I don't have Drag Down to 3 is because there are times when it can clog very, very bad. As if you draw into this and no Dark World monsters, you really have an issue with activating it safely, I guess you could say, without your opponent hurting you also. So we only have 2 because 3 is just, it's too cloggy in my opinion, and I'm just fine with 2. Next up, we have 2 Forbidden Lance. I have elected to go for 2 Lance over 2 MST this format because there is quite a few reactionary traps and reactionary spell cards. And because of that, I felt that MST is extremely lackluster this format. So I'd rather have the 2 Lance, as I don't want my opponent Book of Eclipsing essential cards or bottomlessing cards that I want to have on board, etc, etc, etc. So we do have the Lance just for that general spelling trap protection now. Next, we have the 1 Soul Charge, as since we'll be discarding our monsters quite a bit, we can have Soul Charge in here to help us get all our monsters back almost instantaneously, as well as it also synergizes extremely well with Curry Bandit, as again, Curry Bandit gets our monsters into grave, which we can subsequently get with Soul Charge. So we have the 1 Soul Charge for all of that. Finally, we have 2 more spells, of course, in the 1 Book of Moon and the 1 Raigeki, because both of these are Jin outs, both of these are extremely good spell cards right now, and we gotta run them at 1 each. So that is it for the spell lineup. Moving on to the traps, we start off with the 1 big power trap that we want to see as soon as we can. We have the 1 Eradicator Epidemic Virus. So, Epidemic Virus is really, 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 really strong this format, as a lot of the decks now, I guess you could say, emphasize one specific card that Eradicator can hit, either spells or traps. As if we can successfully resolve this against a Necros player, we can just call spells and they lose all their ritual spells immediately. And just that ability alone to get rid of our opponent's ritual spells and really slowing them down and forcing them to have to commit resources to search for more really can help us burn our opponent's resources quickly and start getting our advantage over them. And just to name a few decks that this card really hurts off the top of my head, I know Sotellers will get hurt because they run a lot of traps, and so are Ritual Beasts and Volcanics because, again, they also run traps. Shadows will get hurt because you'll force them to discard all of their spells, which is their Shadow Fusions and whatnot. And if you guys can kind of see the trend that I'm going with, this card really does put in a lot of work this format. So we want to try and resolve our Eradicator as soon as we can. So we do have the 1 Eradicator and the 1 Curry Bandit again to search out this Eradicator. Next up, we have the triple Mind Crush. Again, this can act as a pseudo discarding outlet, but the main reason why we want Mind Crush is because things that Eradicator cannot hit, which is the searchable cards that our opponent gets, we can hit with Mind Crush. So, if we ever can get Mind Crush alongside a live Eradicator, we can essentially shut down our opponent from all the plays that they might want to do. Excuse me, they might want to do. Yeah. So we have the 3 Mind Crush in here just so we can stop our opponent's searching plays, and so they cannot get around our, I guess you could say, our hindering plays. So we do have the 3 Mind Crush. Next up, we do have the 3 Reckless Greed, because in this deck with Gates of the Dark World, we really don't need our draw phase as much as we think we might. So we do have the 3 Reckless Greed to help us just dig through our deck just that much quicker. Next, we have the one skill drain, because skill drain wrecks quite a bit of decks this format. So we can have the one skill drain in this deck because we really don't have a lot of on-field effects, maybe besides things like Turgide and Chance Archfiend. So we can run this one skill drain because we aren't really hindered by it, and it will hinder our opponent much more. Finally, for the last two traps we run two Call of the Haunted. Much like Soul Charge, we will be discarding and sending our monsters to grave quite often. So we do have the two Call of the Haunted in here just to get them back. So then, that rounds off the 40-card main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we start off with our two rank 8s. We have the one Tachyon Dragon and the one Felgran. I felt that these two are the only relevant rank 8s in my opinion, as I never felt like I wanted to go into any other ones. So we have the one Felgran and the one Tachyon Dragon for our standard rank 8s. Moving on to the rank 4s, we have the one Master Key because we can make it in this deck because everything is dark, and we can use Master Key to help us protect things like our Gates of the Dark World and whatnot. Then we go into pretty staple rank 4s in the one number 80 because banishing our opponent's Necros, Mirrors, and whatnot is pretty fun. We have the one Dark Rebellion because we need to get over big things that our Graphos can't get over, so we have the Dark Rebellion to do that. We have the one Castel because Castel is Castel. Castel is a great rank 4 in general. We have the one Exiton Knight to help our opponent go negative whenever we have to nuke their board. We have the one Daigusto Emerald because we can have the ability to recycle our Dark Rolls back from our graveyard back to our deck. We have the one Lavalva Chain to help us stack our Graphos or send our Graphos to grave. Then we have the one Abyss Dweller to stop our opponent's Burning Abyss and Shadow effects from going off. Next we have the one number 82, Heartland Draco, because we will have gates on our field as much as we possibly can. So we have the Heartland Draco to abuse that ability of hers as much as we possibly can. Then for the final rank 4, we have the one Cowboy because shooting for game is always pretty hilarious. So that is it for the rank 4s. Moving on, we have 3 rank 3s in the form of one number 17, one Mech Whipped, and one Levier. Levier is here because we obviously have to banish for our Gates of the Dark World. So we have the Levier here because we can get whatever we banish back, which is always pretty nice. We have the one Engineer, obviously for our rank 3 wall. And then we have the one Leviathan because I wanted to put a rank 3 stick in here, but I didn't want to put in Acid Golem or Dante because Acid Golem has a really huge restriction that I really don't want to deal with. And Dante, although I would agree that, yeah, sending cards to grave with Dante's effect is always nice. Unlike things like Curry Bandit, when we just mill with Dante, we just mill. We don't have a chance to, or get a Speller Trap back like with Curry Bandit. So I felt that Dante was a bit unnecessary, so I did just elect for Leviathan Dragon. Alright guys, so that is it for my brand new Dark World deck profile for this April 2015 format. Please let me know what you guys think of this list down in the comment section below. And as always, I hope you did enjoy. And this is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace.